Yo, this is a PSA for all you niggas. All you niggas who been hating, talking sideways, any one of you niggas pull it right now. This ain't your nigga. It's mine.
Benjamin Ashanafi Gordon, born April 4th, 1983. In 2009, Ben Gordon went shot for shot with Ray Allen in one of the greatest playoff series ever, turning late-game chaos into his personal stage and making it look like the Bulls had a new superstar closer. For a moment, he wasn't just a microwave scorer, he was one of the most clutch guards in basketball. That's why everything that followed felt so confusing. The roles never matched the production, the decline came without a clear reason, and years later, his name returned in a way no one expected. Now, with the full picture finally out, the story doesn't just feel wild anymore, it makes sense. What happened? Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Let's get him. Like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know who I should do next. Ben Gordon, a 6'3" shooting guard from Mount Vernon, New York, emerged as one of the most dynamic scorers in college basketball at the University of Connecticut. After earning Big East Sixth Man of the Year honors as a freshman, he quickly developed into the focal point of a loaded Huskies roster, leading the team in scoring during his sophomore season and playing a decisive role in UConn's 2004 national championship run. Gordon was named Most Outstanding Player of the Final Four, showcasing the same fearless shot making and late-game shot creation that would later define his NBA reputation. Entering the draft, he was widely viewed as one of the premier perimeter scorers in a historic 2004 class and was selected 3rd overall by the Chicago Bulls. He made an immediate impact at the professional level, becoming the first rookie in NBA history to win Sixth Man of the Year, while also leading the Bulls in scoring. Despite coming off the bench, he consistently closed games and quickly built a reputation as one of the league's most dangerous fourth-quarter scorers. Over the next several seasons, he averaged between 16 and 21 points per game, developed into Chicago's primary late-game option, and delivered multiple game-winning performances. His scoring peak came during the 2008-09 season and the Bulls' first-round playoff series against the defending champion Boston Celtics, where he repeatedly traded clutch shots with Ray Allen and pushed the series to 7 games. At that point, Gordon was no longer viewed as just an elite six-man. He looked like a guard ready to become a full-time franchise-level scorer. Stunt number 1, moved to Detroit and used like a role player. Ben Gordon's prime in Chicago was built on rhythm, freedom, and late-game responsibility. Even while officially coming off the bench, he functioned as the Bulls' primary closer, the guard the offense tilted toward when possessions broke down and the clock dipped under 5. His scoring wasn't just about volume, it was about timing. He needed the ball, the green light, and the trust that the biggest moments belonged to him. That structure allowed him to play instinctively, and it's why his confidence grew into one of the most reliable fourth-quarter weapons in the league, a role that blurred the line between six-man and featured star. The move to Detroit in 2009 looked like the natural next step. He was coming off the best season of his career, had just gone shot for shot with the defending champions in the playoffs, and signed a long-term deal that suggested he would finally be featured as a full-time lead scorer, entering his true prime years. Instead, he entered a roster already built around established veterans and a system that emphasized balance over late-game isolation. The ball was no longer guaranteed to find him when possessions tightened, his minutes fluctuated, and the role that once defined him shifted into something far more structured and less instinctive. For a player whose effectiveness was tied directly to confidence and shot rhythm, the change was more than statistical. The same quick scoring burst that once flipped games in Chicago became harder to sustain without consistent touches and the freedom that allowed him to play through mistakes. What had been his greatest strength, the ability to heat up without warning, now worked against him in a rotation that prioritized stability and equal distribution. From the outside, it looked like a high-scoring guard who couldn't live up to a new contract, but in reality, it was the first time in his career that the environment no longer matched the way he played. The production dipped, the identity shifted, and the version of Gordon that had looked ready to become a franchise scorer never fully carried over. Stunt number 2, when decline didn't make sense. What made Ben Gordon's post-Detroit years so difficult to process in real time wasn't just a drop in production, it was how quickly the version of him that once felt automatic in big moments seemed to vanish. There was no defining injury that explained the shift, no clear loss of athleticism, and no single roster situation that could fully account for it. Instead, his career moved through a series of short stops in Charlotte and Orlando, where his role changed from primary scorer to situational offense, and the consistency that once defined his game became harder to find. The same player who had built his reputation on instant scoring runs now had nights where he struggled to stay involved at all. From a distance, it looked like the league had simply adjusted to a volume shooter who was no longer efficient enough to build an offense around. But that explanation never completely matched what the people had seen earlier in his career. His shot mechanics still the same, the ability to create space off the dribble was still there in flashes, and every so often there would be a stretch of games that hinted the old version hadn't disappeared. The problem was that those stretches no longer lasted. The rhythm that once carried from game to game became unpredictable, and with each new team, the margin for playing through cold periods grew smaller. By the time he reached Orlando, the role had narrowed even further. Instead of being the closer or the primary scoring option, he was now a guard expected to produce in limited minutes without the freedom that had defined his best seasons. I could understand how that might look like a fade into becoming a journeyman, but the speed of that change and the lack of clear basketball reason made it feel incomplete. The confidence that once made him one of the most fearless late-game players in the league didn't disappear in a single moment. It slowly became harder to access, and at the time, there was no obvious explanation for why. Stunt number 3, the missing context. By the time Ben Gordon reached Orlando, the confusion about his decline had turned into a full separation from the league. After the 2013-14 season, he was out of the NBA, and not long after, he resurfaced in the G League with the Texas Legends. For a former third overall pick who once looked like one of the most dangerous closers in basketball, that moment felt unreal. Just a few years earlier, he was trading shots with Ray Allen on national television. Now he was fighting to stay on a roster. At the time, it felt like the final confirmation that his prime had simply burned out early. Then, the story moved away from basketball completely. His name started showing up in headlines tied to arrests and incidents that didn't match the player people remembered. For those of us who watched him from his college days through his Bulls run, it wasn't just shocking, it was sad. This was a guy who always carried himself like a pro, who delivered in the biggest moments, and now he was being talked about for all the wrong reasons. The easy reaction was to treat it like every other post-career fall and assume it was about bad decisions or not adjusting to life after the league. Years later, the context finally came out. Gordon spoke openly about being diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression, and how long he had been dealing with it, even during his playing career. He entered treatment, completed a mental health program, and had multiple charges dismissed as part of that progress. For the first time, the conversation around his name changed from confusion to understanding. And when you look back at his career through that lens, things that never made sense start to connect. The sudden inconsistency, the difficulty holding on to rhythm from team to team, the confidence that seemed to come and go, it wasn't just basketball, it was a battle that no one could see at the time. What once felt like one of the most puzzling declines of that era now had an explanation, and more than anything, it turns the story from a fall into something human. All in all, I can appreciate Ben Gordon's game as a player. He was on my favorite team at the time, playing next to one of my favorite players ever in Derrick Rose, and in that role he was perfect. At his peak, he gave Chicago a level of shot making and late game confidence that every young team needs, and for a few years you really felt like the ball was supposed to find him when everything got tight. And that's why watching the second half of his story play out the way it did never felt normal. It didn't feel like we were just watching a player decline. It felt like watching someone you respected go through something you didn't understand. Now that the full picture is out, it's hard to look at his career as a failure. He made it to the highest level, had moments most players never touch, lost his way for a period, and fought to get himself back to a better place. That's not a fall, that's real life, and it's something a lot of people can learn from. Salute, much respect. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.